For months, she had been serving coffee to the same group of veterans every Thursday, never saying anything about herself. They talked about wars, lost friends, and memories from conflicts she had only read about. Then one afternoon, they mentioned a name that made her freeze mid-pour. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight none of them expected. That was my father. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories about hidden heroes and classified missions, consider subscribing because we'll continue sharing the most powerful moments of silent service. Murphy's Diner sat on Main Street in Millbrook, Ohio, a modest restaurant built where an old gas station used to stand. From the outside, it looked ordinary. Red brick walls, green awning, home cooking sign in the window. The inside was equally unremarkable. Checkered floors, plastic tables, a few old photographs on the walls, and a jukebox in the corner playing songs from the 30s. But every Thursday at 11:30 a.m., this ordinary place became something special. Sarah Chen, 26 years old, had been working there for 5 months. She was quiet, efficient, and didn't make unnecessary conversation with customers. Owner Martha had hired her because she didn't ask for references, just started working. On her first day, she acted like she had no experience, but she knew perfectly how to carry plates, take orders, and operate the coffee machine. There were things that puzzled Martha. Sarah's posture was too straight, her movements too disciplined. She stayed calm even under stress, and sometimes when listening to customers' conversations, an understanding expression would appear on her face, as if she understood not just the words but the emotions underneath. But the strangest thing was her interaction with the Thursday veteran group. 4 men, Frank Kowalski, Jim Patterson, Ray Gonzalez, and Eddie Murphy. He wasn't related to the restaurant owner Eddie, just a coincidence. All in their 60s, all having served in different wars, all sharing the same thing, memories that no one back home could really understand. Every Thursday at 11:30, they would come and sit at the corner table by the window. Always the same orders: black coffee, orange juice, biscuits and gravy, cheeseburger with onions, and a diagonally cut grilled cheese sandwich. It never changed. When Sarah approached them, they would grow quiet. They were polite, said thank you, but never asked questions. She didn't ask them questions either, just did her job. While refilling coffee, she would catch fragments of their conversations, military terms, place names, code words. Not things she didn't understand, quite the opposite, things she understood too well. But she never intervened. This Thursday was different. Second week of November, the first snow was falling outside. Frank was late, kept talking about his x-ray appointment. Jim was complaining about his new medications. Ray's grandson had enlisted. He was worried. Eddie was quiet, watching the snowfall through the window. As Sarah refilled their coffees, their conversation took on a more serious tone than usual. "Remember the worst winter in Vietnam?" Jim said. "December of '72. That operation? Don't talk about it." Frank cut him off. "You know the rules." "Still, after all these years?" Ray shrugged. "Who's listening anyway?" Sarah's ears perked up as she cleared plates. Vietnam, 1972. These details weren't just history to her. Eddie took a deep breath. "I'm going to talk about that operation, because nothing changes anymore." The others looked at him. Eddie rarely spoke about personal things. "Do you remember Martinez?" Eddie said. "The medic. In that last operation we were on together." Sarah's plate in her hand trembled. Martinez. This was a name she had been searching for years. "Eddie, don't," Frank warned. "That subject is closed." "No, it's not closed." Eddie's voice hardened. "It was never closed. That kid saved our lives and nobody remembers him, not even his family." Sarah set the plate down. The other dishes clinked together, making noise. All 4 men turned to her. "Sorry," Sarah quickly started collecting them. "Clumsy." "No problem, honey," Frank smiled. "We all drop things sometimes." Sarah nodded, but she couldn't move. Martinez. Eduardo Martinez. This name had been following her for years. But these men, did they really know him? Eddie continued speaking. His voice had lowered. "That kid took 3 bullets, but he got us to the safe zone. Until his last breath, he took care of our wounded." Jim nodded. "He was 19, just 19. His family never learned what really happened," Ray added. "They just said killed in action. They didn't tell the real story." Sarah's breathing changed. 19 years old, Eduardo Martinez, medic, Vietnam. "He had a daughter," Eddie continued. "A tiny little girl. She never knew her father." Sarah's knees began to tremble. She put down the plates and held onto the table. Frank looked concerned. "You okay, kid?" Sarah looked at them. 4 old men telling her father's story. The answers she had been searching for years were sitting at this ordinary table. In this place they came and went every Thursday. "Eduardo Martinez," Sarah said, her voice slightly above a whisper. All four men froze. What did you say? Eddie's voice had changed. Eduardo Martinez, Staff Sergeant, 1972, Vietnam. Sarah's voice was getting stronger. That was my father. Silence fell over the diner. Even the song on the jukebox seemed to have stopped. Frank's coffee cup was shaking in his hand. Jim's mouth hung open. Ray had leaned forward. Eddie was staring at Sarah carefully, as if seeing a ghost. Are you Martinez's daughter? Eddie's voice was hoarse. Sarah nodded. Maria Elena Martinez, but everyone calls me Sarah now. Eddie slowly stood up. The others followed him. 4 old men had surrounded Sarah, not threateningly, but protectively. It can't be, Frank whispered. Are you that little girl? The one in the photograph? Sarah pulled out a small wallet from her apron. She took out an old yellowed photograph. A young man in military uniform holding a 2-year-old girl in his arms. This is our last photo together, Sarah said. Eddie took the photograph. His hands were shaking. This is him. This is definitely him. He showed it to the others. Look at that smile. He always smiled like that. Jim started crying. God, we've been looking for you for 20 years. Looking for me? Sarah was surprised. Of course, Ray explained. Your father saved our lives. We owe you everything. But we could never find you. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I was looking for you too. My father's friends. What happened in that operation? The Army never said anything. Eddie took a deep breath. Because that operation officially never happened. It was classified. But we all know. Frank touched Sarah's shoulder. Sit down, kid. Let us tell you the stories your mother could never tell. As Sarah sat down, 4 veterans surrounded her. Martha was taking care of other customers, but this corner table was experiencing something very special. Your father wasn't just a hero, Jim began. He was an angel. Our angel. For the next 2 hours, Sarah truly got to know her father. Eddie told the operation, how they were ambushed, how they rescued wounded friends, how Eduardo took 3 bullets but still carried everyone to the safe zone. Frank told Eduardo's jokes, how he kept morale high even in the darkest moments, how he made everyone laugh. Jim told how Eduardo read letters from home to everyone, how his eyes sparkled when he talked about his little girl, his wife, his family. Ray told Eduardo's final moments, how even in his last breath he worried about his friends. Sarah absorbed every word. These stories weren't the fragmentary memories she had been searching for years. They were her father's complete portrait, through the eyes of his friends. We want to give you something. Eddie stood up, pulling a small box from his pocket. We've been keeping this for years, waiting for the day we could give it to you. In the box were Eduardo's dog tags, but not just his friends' dog tags too. 4 pairs of dog tags with Eduardo's dog tag in the center. We made an oath, Frank explained, that night, in the hospital, that we would never leave Eduardo's dog tag alone, that they would always be together, and that one day we would give them to you. Sarah was crying now. When she took the dog tags in her hand, her fingers felt her father's name. This isn't enough, of course, Jim added. We have more things to tell you. Photos we can show you. Letters. Letters? Sarah looked up. Your father used to read us the letters he wrote home. Ray smiled. We also told him about our own families. We were like a family there. Eddie sat down next to Sarah. And you are the continuation of our family. Eduardo's daughter. Our daughter, too. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The diner was almost empty, but the conversation continued at the corner table. Sarah's shift had ended, but she didn't want to leave. Martha approached. Sarah, are you okay? I saw you crying. I'm fine, Martha. Sarah smiled. These gentlemen, they're my father's friends. Martha's face changed. Your father's friends? So that's why you always acted differently toward them every Thursday. I knew something was up, but I wasn't sure, Sarah confessed. Frank turned to Martha. This girl's father saved our lives in Vietnam. He was a heroic man. Martha touched Sarah's shoulder. Then you're a hero's daughter too. And this is your home. That night when Sarah returned home, she placed her father's dog tags in the frame by her bedside. For the first time, she felt like she truly knew her father. The following Thursday, Sarah came to work at her normal time, but this time was different. When the veterans arrived, they didn't just look at her as a waitress. She was now part of the family. Hello, kiddo, Frank hugged her. How are you doing? I'm fine, Uncle Frank, Sarah smiled. This nickname had come out naturally. That day they told Sarah more stories, her father's favorite songs, favorite foods, future plans. Every detail completed another piece in Sarah's heart. Weeks passed. Sarah's life changed. She was no longer just a restaurant worker. She was a girl growing up under the protection of 4 old men. They didn't gossip about her, they gave advice. They wanted to meet her boyfriends. They asked if she had finished school. Sarah also looked after them in return. She checked if they took their medications. She asked if they went to their appointments. She called when they felt lonely. Martha noticed this change. "These men changed you," she said one day. "You look happier." "I found family," Sarah replied. "My father's family is my family." One day, Eddie got sick. He had a heart attack. When he was taken to the hospital, the first person he called was Sarah. "Kiddo," he said with difficulty, "I need to tell you something." Sarah sat next to Eddie. "What is it, Uncle Eddie?" "When your father died, his last words, he wanted me to tell you." Sarah held her breath. "He said, 'Tell my daughter I love her so much, and one day we'll meet again.'" Sarah cried, the words she had wanted to hear for years. Eddie recovered, but this incident brought them all even closer. Sarah now spent not just Thursdays, but also weekends with them. She went to their homes. They came to Sarah's house. A year later, Sarah's birthday came. She was turning 27. The veterans prepared a surprise party for her. They decorated the diner, brought cake. But the real surprise was something else. "Sarah," Frank stood up, "we're so happy you've been with us this year. You remind us of your father. His spirit lives in you." Jim gave her a large package. "This is yours." When Sarah opened the package, this came out, an American flag folded in a triangle. But not just any flag. This was the flag from Eduardo's funeral. "We should have given this to you," Ray explained. "It's your right." Sarah took the flag into her lap. Her father's last memento. "But that's not all," Eddie smiled. He gave another package. This package contained Eduardo's letters. Letters from home, letters he wrote to friends, even letters he wrote to Sarah but could never send. "These should have always been with you," Jim said. As Sarah read the letters, she could hear her father's voice, his love, hopes, fears, and most importantly, his dreams for his daughter. One letter was special. He had written it for Sarah's 18th birthday, but a birthday he would never see. "My little girl," it read, "if you're reading this letter, I'm no longer with you. But know that I think of you every day. You are my greatest pride, my greatest love, my greatest hope. I know that when you grow up, you'll be a strong woman. And one day, maybe, you'll find my friends. They're good men. They'll tell you everything about your father." Sarah was crying. Her father had known years ago that she would find his friends. "Continue," Frank encouraged her. Sarah continued reading. "These friends won't just tell you stories. They'll be family to you. Because what we learned there is this: family is built not just through blood ties, but through heart ties. And these men are the brothers in my heart, which means they're your brothers too." When Sarah finished the letter, 4 old men hugged her tightly. They had truly become a family now. After that night, Sarah's life completely changed. She was no longer an orphan. She had 4 fathers, countless uncles, a big family. And every Thursday, at the corner table, Eduardo Martinez's story continued to live. Through his daughter, through his friends, through love. Sometimes we think we've lost our loved ones, but the truth is, love never disappears. It just comes back in different ways. Sometimes in a diner, at a table, in an unexpected moment. Sarah Martinez, she now used her real name. When she came to the diner every day, she wasn't just coming to work. She was coming to keep her father's memory alive. And serving every customer, she was sharing her father's love. This story isn't just about a chance encounter. This is a family story built through bonds of love, not blood. Have you ever experienced such a family? One that didn't choose you, but came to you and changed your life? 3 months after the reunion, Sarah received unexpected news. A local newspaper had heard about the story and wanted to write an article. Sarah was hesitant at first, but the veterans encouraged her. "Your father's story should be told," Eddie said. "Too many heroes are forgotten." The article ran with the headline, "Daughter Finds Father's War Brothers After 25 Years. It included the photograph of young Eduardo with baby Sarah and a current photo of Sarah with the 4 veterans. The response was overwhelming. Letters poured in from other veterans, other families who had lost touch, other stories of sacrifice and service. The diner became a gathering place for veterans from all wars, all conflicts. Martha installed a memorial wall where families could leave photographs and stories of their fallen heroes. Eduardo's photo held the place of honor, surrounded by dozens of others. Sarah realized she had found more than just her father's friends. She had discovered a community, a network of people who understood loss and service and sacrifice. One veteran, a Korean War survivor named Robert Kim, approached Sarah one Thursday. "My daughter lives in California," he said quietly. "I haven't seen her in 10 years. After reading about you, maybe it's time I called," Sarah smiled. It's never too late, Mr. Kim. Family always waits. That afternoon, she helped Robert make the call. Through tears, father and daughter reconnected across the miles and years. This became Sarah's new mission, not just serving coffee, but helping connect families, veterans, and communities. The diner transformed into something like a counseling center, a meeting place, a home for those who had served and those who loved them. Frank, now 82, often marveled at the change. Your father would be so proud, he told Sarah one evening as she was closing up. He always said you'd do something important. This is important? Sarah asked, wiping down tables. Frank looked around at the memorial wall, the letters, the photographs, the stories. Kiddo, you've brought the dead back to life. You've reconnected the living. If that's not important, I don't know what is. Sarah nodded, understanding. She had found her purpose in that corner booth, in those Thursday conversations, in the simple act of pouring coffee for men who had carried her father's memory for 25 years. Every morning when she unlocked the diner, she would pause at Eduardo's photograph. Another day, Dad, she would whisper. Let's see who we can help today. And every evening, as she turned off the lights, she would hear his voice in her memory. I love you, mija, until we meet again. The diner stayed open late that night, filled with laughter and stories and the sound of family. Chosen family, military family, the kind of family that forms when people decide to carry each other's burdens and share each other's joy. Outside, snow began to fall again, but inside Murphy's diner, warmth spread from table to table, story to story, heart to heart. Sarah Chen Martinez had finally come home. On the one-year anniversary of their reunion, the veterans surprised Sarah with something extraordinary. They had contacted other members of Eduardo's unit, men who had scattered across the country after the war. One by one, they began arriving at the diner. Tommy Rodriguez from Texas, now a grandfather of 6. Mike O'Brien from Boston, a retired firefighter. Anthony Silva from California, who ran a construction company. Men Sarah had never met but who knew her father's voice, his laugh, his dreams for his daughter. Each man brought something, a photograph, a story, a memory that had been locked away for decades. Together they painted a complete picture of Eduardo Martinez, not just the hero who died saving lives, but the young man who talked about his daughter every day, who carried her photo in his helmet, who promised to teach her to fish when he got home. He talked about you constantly, Tommy told Sarah, said you were going to be a teacher someday. Smart as a whip, he'd say, I did become a teacher, Sarah said softly. Elementary school, before I started working here, Mike smiled. He'd be proud. He always said education was the most important thing he could give you. These reunions became regular events. Every few months, another veteran would make the journey to Murphy's diner. The corner table expanded to accommodate more chairs, more stories, more family. Sarah learned that her father had saved not just 4 lives, but dozens. The operation that officially never happened had prevented a massacre. Eduardo's quick thinking and medical skills had kept an entire platoon alive long enough for rescue. The Army couldn't acknowledge it, Anthony explained. Too politically sensitive at the time, but we all knew. Eduardo Martinez was the reason we came home. The diner's reputation spread. Veterans Affairs counselors began referring struggling veterans to Murphy's diner, knowing they would find understanding, acceptance, and family there. Sarah became an unofficial therapist, listener, and connection point for men and women who had served their country and lost their way back home. One evening, as Sarah was cleaning the memorial wall, she found a new addition. Someone had left a Purple Heart medal with a note. For Eduardo Martinez, from a grateful nation that finally remembers. She never found out who left it, but it didn't matter. Her father was finally getting the recognition he deserved, not from politicians or generals, but from the people whose lives he had touched. The medal went in the place of honor, next to Eduardo's photograph, surrounded by letters from families he had helped reunite, veterans he had inspired, and children who now knew their grandfather's stories. Sarah stood back and looked at the wall. Her father's legacy wasn't just in the lives he had saved in Vietnam. It was in every conversation that happened at those tables, every family that reconnected, every veteran who found their way home. Thank you, Dad, she whispered, for leading me here, for giving me this family, for showing me that love never dies. Outside, the Ohio winter wind rattled the windows, but inside Murphy's diner, the warmth of family, memory, and love kept the cold at bay. The letters, the photographs, the stories. Kiddo, you've brought the dead back to life. You've reconnected the living. If that's not important, I don't know what is. Sarah nodded, understanding. She had found her purpose in that corner booth, in those Thursday conversations, in the simple act of pouring coffee for men who had carried her father's memory for 25 years. Every morning when she unlocked the diner, she would pause at Eduardo's photograph. "Another day, Dad," she would whisper. "Let's see who we can help today." And every evening, as she turned off the lights, she would hear his voice in her memory. "I love you, mija, until we meet again." The diner stayed open late that night, filled with laughter and stories and the sound of family. Chosen family, military family, the kind of family that forms when people decide to carry each other's burdens and share each other's joy. Outside, snow began to fall again, but inside Murphy's diner, warmth spread from table to table, story to story, heart to heart. Sarah Chen Martinez had finally come home.